morning sun lit up the private airfield as Alicia Rhodes stepped onto the tarmac, ready to finalize the biggest deal of her life. But instead of a warm welcome, she was met with mockery, thinly veiled insults, and the kind of smugness reserved for people who think power makes them untouchable. What they didn't know? Alicia wasn't just here to sign papers. She was here to make history, and in one stunning moment, she flips the narrative in a way that sends shockwaves through the entire aviation industry. Just when it seems she's claimed her victory, a hidden agenda begins to surface, a calculated attempt to damage her name and freeze her company's assets. How far will these elites go to push her out? And can she stop them before everything she's built is ripped away? Before we dive deeper, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe. Tomorrow's story will leave you speechless. Earlier that day, Alicia stood by the window of her Manhattan penthouse, watching the city wake beneath golden light. Her reflection in the glass was calm, unshaken, the same look she wore through boardroom battles and backdoor deals. But today felt different. This day wasn't just another negotiation. It was legacy. In the kitchen, Sasha Monroe, her bright and ever-loyal digital strategist, was already setting breakfast. Pastries, fruit, hot coffee, perfectly laid out. "All set, Ms. Rhodes," Sasha called, aligning plates with quiet focus. "Sasha?" Alicia replied gently. "How many times do I have to say this? Just call me Alicia when it's just us." Sasha smiled, but her energy was tense. She hadn't touched her food, instead tapping nervously on her tablet. "I've been tracking their socials. The jet owners. Something feels off. Their posts aren't normal. They're hinting at status, tradition, even dropping coded digs about new money. Maybe I'm overthinking." "You're not," Alicia said without hesitation. "You've got sharp instincts. That's why I trust your read." She glanced at her phone, scanning contract figures. $770 million. But more than numbers, this was about access, about rewriting the rules in a space that had long kept people like her out. Sasha nodded. "You're the first black CEO they've ever invited to the table, and the first woman. That's why this matters." Alicia's voice was calm but fierce. "Exactly. This isn't just a deal. It's a message to every little girl who's ever been told she doesn't belong." They ate in silence for a few moments, both lost in thought. Alicia reflected on her journey, rising from nothing, fighting bias at every level, building her business brick by brick, deal by deal. Nothing was handed to her. Everything had been earned. "Do you remember what you told me on my first day?" Sasha asked. Alicia smiled. "Remind me." Sasha grinned. "You said we have to be twice as good to get half as far, but that's how we'd win, because we're always 10 times better than they expect." Alicia laughed softly. "And now you're running the entire digital side, always 3 steps ahead." "Learned from the best," Sasha replied, her earlier tension replaced with confidence. "So, what's the strategy?" she asked. Alicia grabbed her briefcase. "We arrive exactly on time. We stay professional. We close this deal with the same precision and class we always do." The rest of the morning moved like clockwork. The weather was perfect. Their outfits were crisp, their documents flawless. As the elevator descended to the rooftop helipad, Sasha practiced her calming breaths, a technique Alicia once taught her. Alicia leaned in and whispered, "Remember, we're not guests at this table. We earned our seats. Every number has been double-checked, every clause reviewed. We're not asking for access. We are access." The helicopter stood ready, blades cutting through the crisp air. In its polished reflection, 2 black women in flawless business wear walked toward their future, briefcases in hand, prepared to take on an industry that had never seen them coming. The flight to the Hamptons gave them a moment of calm, a final chance to run through strategy before stepping into the lion's den. Sasha scrolled through the research file she'd compiled on each member of the jet consortium, names tied to generations of old wealth elite golf clubs, and deals made only with people who looked like them. This wasn't just a business meeting. It was an entry into a space that had never welcomed them before. As the helicopter touched down, the contrast was instant. Other executives were being greeted with red carpets, champagne, and photographers. But Alicia and Sasha were met by a lone junior staffer holding a clipboard, barely glancing up. "Well," Sasha murmured as she gathered her things, "no velvet ropes for us, I guess." Alicia straightened her blazer with quiet resolve. "That's fine," she said, calm and steady. "We'll build our own runway." Stepping onto the tarmac, the sunlight beat down overhead. Around them, jets gleamed like sculptures of power, row after row of wealth on full display. Nearby, small clusters of owners chatted and laughed, their conversations dipping as the two women walked past. They weren't just visitors, they were outsiders. Their heels echoed across the pavement in perfect rhythm, the silence between them rich with shared understanding. Alicia didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She'd stood her ground in bigger storms than this, and she wasn't here to blend in. A few men in tailored suits tilted their sunglasses to get a better look. One of them adjusted his gold cufflinks with flair and muttered, "Well, this is definitely new." Another chuckled, "Times are changing, though some changes are more surprising than others." Sasha's grip on her portfolio tightened, but Alicia didn't break stride. "Stay focused," Alicia said under her breath. "Their words only have power if we let them." They moved past one private jet after another, some shining like mirrors, others customized like floating palaces. But it wasn't admiration in the air. It was scrutiny, and in some cases, open mockery. A group of men in golf polos openly stared as the two women walked by. One of them leaned in and said, just loud enough to hear, "Heard she used to clean houses." Laughter followed. "Well, looks like she cleaned up all right." Sasha's jaw clenched, but Alicia gave her a gentle nudge. "You already know what I'm going to say," she whispered. "Their words say more about them than they ever will about us." As they reached the main gathering space, the owners, a tight circle of old alliances, kept their backs turned. Only when Alicia and Sasha stood within feet did the men slowly rotate, wearing smiles that didn't reach their eyes. "Ms. Rhodes," said Victor Sterling, the lead partner, extending a reluctant hand. "Right on time, I see." Alicia returned the handshake, firm and composed. "Thank you for the invitation." Sterling pulled his hand back quickly, brushing it against his jacket. "Well, we try to be inclusive these days." His tone suggested it wasn't his idea. The other owners shared smirks, barely masked behind designer sunglasses. Then one of them, Charles Whitman III, stepped forward with a theatrical bow. "Quite bold of you," he said, stretching the word bold until it bled sarcasm, "to dream this big." The others chuckled under their breath. Sasha adjusted the folders in her arms, her usual confidence flickering in the heavy air of exclusion. Alicia, always observant, picked up on it instantly, but she remained poised. Let them laugh, the numbers didn't lie. Sterling gestured toward the far end of the airfield. "We've arranged the aircraft for your demonstration flight. Follow me." Without waiting for a response, he turned on his heel. They walked in silence, Alicia and Sasha trailing behind the rest. Intentionally, it seemed. The owners kept talking among themselves, as though the women weren't even there. Topics drifted from luxury yacht renovations to upcoming golf tournaments at clubs most people had never even heard of. One man said, loud enough for all to hear, "Speaking of clubs, perhaps we've become too open with our membership. Some traditions deserve protection." Laughter followed. The farther they walked, the more the tone of the setting shifted. The runway became cracked, less maintained. The jets they passed now were older, some with visible wear. It was clear they weren't being led to the same caliber of aircraft as everyone else, and Alicia noticed. But instead of reacting, she stored it. Every snub, every whisper, every condescending glance. She didn't push back, not yet. Because sometimes the most powerful move is letting them think they've already won. They finally stopped near a hangar that had clearly seen better days. Victor Sterling gestured with performative flair toward an aircraft tucked halfway into the shadows. "Here we are, Ms. Rhodes's," he said, barely concealing his smugness. "Your demonstration model." Alicia and Sasha stood still, taking in the jet in front of them, or rather, the insult disguised as one. The aircraft was old, easily 2 decades past its prime. Its faded exterior was no longer white, more like a dull gray. Dust coated the windows. One of the landing gear panels showed rust. This wasn't just neglect. This was deliberate. "We thought something simpler might better suit your needs," Charles Whitman added, his voice thick with sarcasm. "We wouldn't want you overwhelmed by anything too advanced." The laughter that followed from the other owners was open now. No more polite masks. One man even pulled out his phone, ready to record what he assumed would be a perfectly humiliating moment. The jet stood there like the punchline to a cruel joke, a pointed reminder of how they viewed her. This wasn't about aviation. It was about control, power, putting her back in her place. Sasha's breath caught. Her arms trembled slightly beneath the weight of the portfolios, but she held firm. She knew Alicia wouldn't fold. She never had. But the disrespect hanging in the air was sharp and heavy. Sterling looked around theatrically, then turned back with mock concern. "Is there a problem, Miss Rhodes? This aircraft is completely functional. Some might even say, more your style." The sun now hung high in the sky, casting long, harsh shadows across the scene. The contrast couldn't be more obvious. This forgotten corner of the airfield versus the gleaming rows of jets in the distance, where everyone else had been welcomed. Alicia didn't move. She stared at the plane, unreadable. Around her, a small crowd had begun to gather. Guests wandered over, sensing something was happening. Phones were up, eyes were locked. "Would you like us to explain the controls?" Wittmann asked, voice dripping with condescension. "They can be a bit tricky for people without experience." Sterling nodded, adding with a faux smile, "Safety first, especially for guests unfamiliar with how things work at this level." Sasha's fingers clenched tighter, her knuckles pale. Her chest rose with shallow, angry breaths. It wasn't just about the plane. It was about watching her mentor, the woman who had taught her everything, being disrespected in front of strangers who saw only what they wanted to see. Another man, emboldened by the smirking audience, chimed in, "Honestly, we should be praised for even considering this partnership. These days, people forget where they belong." Laughter echoed across the tarmac. Alicia slowly turned to face them, her posture perfect, her gaze steady, the kind of stillness that comes from years of endurance, years of learning when to speak and when to strike. "Mr. Sterling," she said, voice clear, every syllable sharp. "Is this your idea of a joke?" He blinked, thrown by her calm. This wasn't the reaction he had expected. "Now, Ms. Rhodes, there's no need to be so sensitive. We're simply trying to make you comfortable. The aircraft is perfectly suitable for someone with your background." More laughter, more whispers. A woman in designer tennis gear whispered something to her friend, eyes scanning Alicia's white power suit with thinly veiled contempt. "My background," Alicia repeated softly. She let the words linger, cold in the morning air. Then she looked directly at Sterling. "Do tell me, what exactly do you mean by that?" Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The power was in the silence that followed, in the way heads turned, in how the laughter died in people's throats. Even the phone started lowering. Something had shifted. Sterling's smile faltered. "Well, you know," he stammered. "Your people aren't usually. I mean, this is a specialized field and it requires a certain standard. My people? Alicia raised one brow ever so slightly. Please, continue. You seem to know so much about them. Now it was Sterling's face that turned red. The confidence he had worn so comfortably a moment ago cracked under the weight of his own words. Whitman stepped in, voice hardening. All right, that's enough. If you can't take a joke... But Alicia was already turning toward the crowd, not retreating, not stepping back, but claiming the space. She wasn't just answering for herself anymore. She was answering for everyone who had been kept out of rooms like this, and the room was listening. You don't belong in this business, one of them scoffed. We're doing you a favor even considering this deal. Alicia didn't flinch. She reached calmly into her blazer pocket and pulled out her phone. The movement was smooth, even casual, but her voice, when she spoke, carried the quiet force of a woman done tolerating disrespect. A favor? She repeated, raising an eyebrow. Is that what you call this staged humiliation? This carefully orchestrated mockery? Sterling opened his mouth to respond, but Alicia raised one hand, and just like that, he fell silent. No, Mr. Sterling, she said. You've had your little performance. Now it's my turn. Her thumb pressed a single button on her screen. Marcus, she said, putting the call on speaker. This is Alicia Rodas. I need you to activate Termination Clause 7 on the consortium agreement. Yes, the full $770 million, and make sure the press release includes the reason. Every word of it. The airfield fell still. Sterling's face drained of color. Whitman choked on whatever he was about to say. The others stood frozen, their confidence vanishing as the realization hit. They weren't in control anymore. You can't do that, Sterling finally blurted. There are penalties. The penalties, Alicia interrupted, are nullified when clear evidence of discriminatory behavior exists. And thanks to all of you, she gestured to the crowd and their raised phones. We now have more than enough documentation. Sasha stepped forward, no longer hiding her emotions. Her expression was one of pure pride. Her mentor wasn't just responding. She was dismantling decades of entitlement with surgical precision. The termination notice will arrive shortly, Alicia continued. You'll want to speak with your attorneys. You'll need them. She turned toward the old jet behind her, the one they'd chosen to insult her, then slowly looked back at the stunned men. This plane is appropriate, she said, because people like me, people who've earned every inch of their success, understand the difference between image and value, between arrogance and true power. We don't measure success by the wine served or the wallpaper on the jet. We measure it by integrity. Her phone buzzed again. She glanced down. Ah, that would be the press release going live, she said, her voice as smooth as ever. Shall I read it aloud? Sterling lunged forward, voice shaking. Wait, please. Let's talk. Be reasonable. But Alicia didn't even slow down. Sasha turned her head slightly, just enough to see the man, once so smug, now stumbling forward before his lawyer grabbed his arm, trying to hold him back. You don't understand what you're doing, Whitman yelled, face twisted in fear and disbelief. There will be consequences. That made Alicia pause. She turned to him slowly, her presence alone enough to make him step back without thinking. Consequences? She repeated. Like the consequences of exclusion? The consequences of assuming your money puts you above accountability? Her eyes scanned the group, now awkward, silent, shifting on their feet. My entire career, she said evenly, has been shaped by consequences, of working harder for less credit, of being underestimated in every room I've walked into, of never being handed anything, and still building something they couldn't ignore. She gave a small smile, but it wasn't friendly. Trust me, Mr. Whitman. I understand consequences better than you ever will. Behind them, phones buzzed with breaking headlines. Stocks were already reacting. News alerts lit up screens across the airstrip. $770 million deal terminated amid allegations of discrimination. Rhoda's Aviation pulls out following viral incident. Industry giants caught in backlash. The same people who had laughed minutes earlier now avoided Alicia's gaze. She turned to Sasha, who was glowing with purpose. "Come on," Alicia said. "We've got more important things to build than their old system." And with that, they walked back toward their waiting helicopter, leaving behind silence, panic, and a crumbling kingdom of privilege that had underestimated the wrong woman. Across the tarmac, a young associate sprinted toward Sterling, waving his tablet in panic. "Sir, the Asian markets are already reacting. We could be looking at a major—" His voice dropped to a whisper, but Sterling's reaction said it all. He staggered back as if struck, his face ashen. Behind them, chaos bloomed like wildfire. Alicia resumed her walk toward the waiting helicopter, Sasha falling into stride beside her. The sound of the rotor blades, steady, rhythmic, cut through the rising panic behind them. "You'll never work in this industry again," someone shouted. Sasha glanced over at Alicia, just in time to catch the faint curve of a smile on her mentor's lips. Not bitterness, not revenge, just quiet certainty. Because Alicia Rodas had never needed permission to belong. She wasn't fighting for a seat at their table anymore. She was building her own. They reached the helicopter. Sasha climbed in after Alicia and pulled the door closed. The noise outside faded. Inside, it was calm, focused. The skyline stretched ahead, endless, open. As the aircraft lifted off, the full picture came into view. Down below, what had once been a perfectly staged networking event had fractured into damage control. Owners who'd laughed minutes earlier now huddled in disarray. Lawyers were arriving in black sedans, parking wherever they could. Phones buzzed nonstop, hands shook. Alicia stared out the window, her face unreadable. Sasha watched as Alicia reached for the simple gold locket around her neck, the one she always wore, a gift from her grandmother, who once scrubbed floors so Alicia could attend college. "You okay?" Sasha asked through the headset. Alicia turned. Her expression wasn't one of anger or regret. It was something deeper, fierce, peaceful. "I'm more than okay," she said. "I'm free." The helicopter banked again, giving them one final glimpse of the collapsing illusion behind them. Alicia's mind traveled, back to the first bank that denied her a loan, the investors who never returned her calls, the boardrooms where she was mistaken for the assistant. "You know," she said, her voice steady, "my grandmother used to tell me, dignity isn't something people give you, it's something you carry and protect." Sasha nodded slowly. She had seen Alicia live by that truth again and again. "When I started in this business," Alicia continued, "I was told to take what I could get, be grateful, stay quiet, laugh off the jokes." She shook her head. "But I made a promise, not just to myself, but to everyone who'd come after me, that I wouldn't just make it, I'd make it on my own terms." The city stretched out below them now, a sea of light and ambition. Up here, those who tried to shut her out no longer mattered. "My legacy isn't about contracts or headlines," Alicia said. "It's about proving to the next generation that they never have to shrink to fit someone else's comfort zone. They don't have to pretend not to notice when they're being insulted. They don't have to accept less." She turned to Sasha, her voice full of something rare, a sense of unstoppable clarity. "We're going to build something better than what they tried to tear down today. Something built on talent, not privilege. On vision, not inheritance." Sasha smiled, watching the woman who had once inspired her with a single internship email now set an entire industry on fire. "They never saw it coming, did they?" she asked. "They thought they were humiliating you, but they only exposed themselves." Alicia let out a warm, real laugh. "They thought power meant never being questioned. But real power, It's knowing who you are and never letting anyone define you. The helicopter descended onto a Manhattan rooftop just as the sun melted into the horizon, casting the skyline in shades of amber and gold. The rotors slowed. The city came alive beneath them. Waiting near the helipad, a sleek black car stood ready. The driver opened the door with quiet respect. "Ms. Rodas," he said. "Mr. Whitaker is waiting at the restaurant." "Thank you, James," Alicia replied, stepping into the back seat with Sasha close behind. Inside the car, the world felt calm again. Sasha pulled up her tablet. "I've arranged additional security for the office. Also, I'm monitoring all major news feeds. It's already trending across every network." Alicia nodded. "Smart. They won't go quietly." The car cruised through the city, turning onto a quiet street in Tribeca. No signs, no crowds, just one of those places where the elite go when they don't want to be seen. Tonight, though, Alicia Rhodes didn't need to hide. She had already been seen, exactly as she was, and the world was watching. They were led to a quiet private room at the back of the restaurant, where Thomas Whitaker sat surrounded by documents neatly spread across a white linen tablecloth. He rose as they entered, tall and composed, his silver hair and calm authority instantly commanding the space, even in relaxed evening wear. "There she is, my favorite client," he said with a wry smile, pulling out their chairs. "You just cost me my weekend." "Sorry about that," Alicia replied, though the tone in her voice said she wasn't sorry at all. "Are you kidding?" Thomas laughed, settling into his seat. "I haven't had this much fun since we took down that corrupt board in Seattle." He nodded to the waiter. "3 martinis, extra dry. We're celebrating." "Celebrating?" Sasha asked, unfolding her napkin. "The deal just exploded." Thomas held up a finger. "No, the deal didn't explode. Our CEO executed a termination clause after the other side violated multiple contract terms. Specifically, the anti-discrimination provisions we added for exactly this reason." He shuffled through papers. "Big difference." He pulled out a blank form. "Now, I need every detail. Start from the moment you landed." As the waiter brought the drinks, Alicia began recounting the scene at the airfield, the tone, the aircraft, the comments. Thomas listened carefully, scribbling notes, occasionally stopping her for clarification. His jaw tensed as she described the plane and the laughter. "Idiots," he muttered. "Absolute fools. Did they really think you'd just smile and take it?" "They're not used to consequences," Alicia replied, sipping her martini. "But that's about to change." He nodded. "Termination's solid, legally airtight, but we need to move fast. They're already working on a counter-narrative." Sasha pulled out her phone and turned the screen toward them, dozens of alerts, posts, and private forums already buzzing. Alicia leaned in to read. Her expression didn't change. Comment after comment questioned her composure, her qualifications, her leadership. Words like unpredictable, too emotional, and unstable were showing up again and again. "Classic strategy," Thomas said, setting his pen down. "When they can't dispute your decision, they attack you. Try to make it personal. Turn your professionalism into a liability." A waiter returned with their food, salmon for Alicia, pasta for Sasha, steak for Thomas, but none of them touched it. The focus had shifted entirely to defense. "We have to take control of the narrative," Sasha said, still scrolling. "It's spreading fast, especially in executive spaces." "I've already prepared statements for the financial outlets," Thomas replied. "We lead with facts. They breached. You acted. End of story." "They'll try to spin it," Alicia said quietly. "A black woman who couldn't handle the pressure, overreacted, made it personal." Thomas sliced into his untouched steak. "Let them try. We've got witnesses. And that associate, the one who ran across the tarmac, he's already reached out. Says he has recordings." Sasha blinked. Of the meeting? Of them planning it. Thomas nodded. Arrogance makes people sloppy. Alicia finally took a bite of her salmon. They thought there would be no fallout, that no one would hold them accountable. Thomas flipped to another folder. We need to talk contingency, asset protection, data backups, messaging across departments. They may try to make this ugly. For the next hour, they worked methodically through potential attacks and responses. Sasha took notes. Thomas outlined legal options. Alicia made fast, firm decisions. One more thing, Thomas said, as their meeting drew to a close. The termination? It's going to hit their stock hard at opening bell. Expect noise, distractions. They'll push back. Hard. Right then, Alicia's phone buzzed again. She turned the screen around. On a private industry forum, a new post was climbing fast. Sources close to roadies questioned stability and past behavior. Thomas frowned. And so it begins. Let them come, Alicia said evenly. I've faced worse than whispers. Sasha looked at her, still amazed. Where most would be furious or afraid, Alicia was calm, centered. She wasn't shaken. She was sharpening. The waiter arrived with the check, which Thomas took immediately. My treat. Consider it an investment in the battle ahead. As they stood, Alicia's phone buzzed again. More alerts, more rumors. The smear campaign was officially in motion. Outside, a car waited. I've got alerts on every platform, Sasha said, checking her tablet. Anything with your name, the company's name, or the deal. We'll see it all. Thomas helped Alicia with her coat. Get some rest tonight, he said gently. Because tomorrow, we start pushing back. They exited the quiet restaurant into the cool night air of Manhattan. The city lights glowed, but Alicia Rhodes didn't need spotlights to be seen. The world had already noticed. Their footsteps echoed softly across the hardwood floors as they left the restaurant. Outside, the city pulsed with its late-night rhythm. Headlights, voices, movement that never really stopped. James held the car door open, but Alicia paused, looking up at the skyline. The same buildings that housed the very people now working overtime to ruin her name. You know what my grandmother used to say about lies? She asked quietly. Sasha glanced up from her phone. What? Lies are like shadows, Alicia said. They seem big until you shine a light on them. Then they disappear. By morning, that light had begun to shine. Sunlight spilled into Alicia's corner office, catching the polished edges of the conference table where her core team had already gathered. Laptops open, charts pulled up. The atmosphere was focused, but tense. Marcus, her head of communications, stood at the main screen, flipping through captured screenshots from forums and social platforms. The patterns were undeniable. They're coordinating, he said, circling phrases that kept repeating. Unstable, overly emotional, difficult to work with. Same language, different sources, different platforms. Alicia, sitting at the head of the table in a pristine white suit, radiated calm. The color wasn't accidental. It stood out. It owned the room. Show me the timeline, she said. Marcus nodded. The first wave hit just hours after we canceled. By midnight, major influencers were raising questions. This morning, 3 financial blogs ran stories about your leadership style. They're tailoring the message, Sasha added, scrolling on her tablet. In women's networks, they're leaning into emotional framing. In finance forums, it's all about your supposed difficulty. It's coordinated and it's strategic. Of course it is, Alicia said. This wasn't improvised. They've had this ready, waiting for a moment to use it. The door opened. Thomas Whitaker entered, looking far too sharp for the hour. Morning, he greeted. I see we're already knee-deep in their playbook. Alicia gestured toward the screen. Pull up the Wilson interview. The display changed to a business news segment. A silver-haired executive sat in a sleek studio, offering a measured, calculated critique. She may have been losing control, he said. Some recent decisions raised concerns internally. Thomas sighed, loosening his tie. That's their chairman. He didn't attack you directly, just implied concern. Legally safe. Publicly dangerous. They're trying to rattle the investors, Janet, the CFO added. I'm already fielding calls. Alicia stood and walked to the window. The city was fully awake now. She looked at her own reflection in the glass, still, composed. Marcus, she said, what's our reach? He pulled up a new slide. We've got strong ties with major publications. Journalists from key outlets are reaching out. They want your side. Who? Alicia asked. Sarah Chen from Business Weekly. She covered bias in venture funding last year. Michael Torres at Financial Times. He's focused on equity in luxury markets. And Diana Washington wants you on her evening show. Alicia nodded. Diana's platform is powerful, but not yet. We need to build the narrative first. Set up interviews with Sarah and Michael. Sasha was already typing. What's the message? The truth, Alicia answered. No spin, no drama. We show what happened. Let the public connect the dots. Thomas leaned in. Let's also release the contract language, show how they violated the terms. Specifically the anti-discrimination clauses. Already drafting it, Marcus said. Janet raised a hand. What about our shareholders? We schedule a call this afternoon, Alicia said. I'll speak to them directly and prep a memo on our stability. Remind them why they trusted us in the first place. The room hummed with activity. Sasha handled security and monitoring. Marcus outlined talking points. Janet prepared financials. No one complained. No one questioned. They moved like a single unit, experienced, calm, and focused. By 11 a.m., Marcus looked up from his phone. Sarah can meet at 2. Michael wants a longer sit-down first thing tomorrow. Perfect, Alicia said. Sarah sets the tone. Michael goes deep. Thomas reviewed the prep materials. Remember, they're trying to make this about your temperament. You've already won the facts. Now show them your steadiness. Alicia didn't respond right away. She just smiled, a quiet, unshakable smile that came from someone who had been underestimated one time too many. Let them keep guessing, she said, and the team got back to work. Stick to the facts, Thomas had reminded her that morning. They'll try to bait you. Don't give them the reaction they want. Alicia smiled faintly. Thomas, I've been handling men like them for 30 years. They've never seen me lose control, and I don't plan to start now. The team took a short break for lunch, but Alicia stayed in her office with Sasha, quietly reviewing the morning's impact. Sunlight streaked through the floor-to-ceiling windows, glinting off her white suit, illuminating the polished wood of her desk, a calm space in the eye of a growing storm. Sasha glanced up from her tablet. Their strategy's starting to backfire, she said. People are beginning to ask why they're attacking your personality instead of addressing what actually happened. Alicia didn't look surprised. That's because they can't defend what they did, she replied. So they're trying to shift the spotlight, make it about me. She walked over to the chess set near the window, moving a piece across the board. But they made one critical error, she said, placing a bishop down. What's that? Sasha asked, watching her. They think this is about my feelings, my reaction. She moved another piece. They don't realize I'm not the story. I'm the spark. This is about something much bigger. Understanding clicked in Sasha's expression. You're going to use their attacks to expose the entire system. Exactly. Alicia's voice was steady, but laced with conviction. Every time they call me difficult, we show similar labels used to undermine women and people of color in leadership. When they question my stability, we show how that language has been used for decades to silence strong voices. Just then, Marcus appeared at the door. Sarah Chen is confirmed for 2 WAG, he said. She wants to focus on discrimination in luxury industries, She wants to use yesterday's incident as a case study. Perfect, Alicia said, returning to her desk. Let's prep at 1. I want all the documents ready. Contract terms, timeline, witness statements, everything. As Marcus left, Sasha updated the calendar. Shareholder call is set for 4 p.m. Also, Diana Washington's team wants to confirm an interview slot for later this week. One thing at a time, Alicia said, already reviewing Sarah's past reporting. First, we show them what real leadership looks like. Then we change the entire conversation. At 2:00 sharp, Alicia sat across from journalist Sarah Chen inside a modern, glass-walled podcast studio. The space was sleek but intimate, designed for real conversations, not rehearsed PR. Sarah adjusted her mic as the producer counted them in. Welcome back to Breaking Barriers. I'm Sarah Chen. Today we're joined by Alicia Rodas, CEO of Rodas Aviation. Alicia, thank you for being here. Thank you for having me, Alicia replied, her voice composed, her tone unwavering. Let's start with yesterday, Sarah said. You were at Hampton Executive Airfield to finalize a deal with Elite Jets Consortium. What happened? Alicia took a slow, deliberate breath. My assistant and I arrived for what was supposed to be a straightforward closing meeting. We'd been negotiating a $770 million joint venture. All documents were prepared, but the tone shifted the moment we stepped onto the tarmac. She spoke clearly, without dramatics, just the truth. Other executives were welcomed warmly. We were met with stares, murmurs. I heard comments about how people like me don't belong on that side of the runway. Jokes about whether I was someone's assistant. The message was clear. And how did your actual assistant react? Sarah asked. Sasha was upset, of course, but unfortunately this wasn't new. We've both been in rooms where our presence was treated as a problem. We stayed focused until the demonstration aircraft was revealed. Sarah checked her notes. You refused to proceed with the deal because of that? They presented an outdated, dirty aircraft, Alicia said, not what was outlined in the contract. When I questioned it, they told me it was more my style. The studio grew still. Even Sarah blinked at that. That's not only unprofessional, Alicia continued. It's deliberate. The contract specified a new G650. What they gave us was a neglected aircraft hidden at the edge of the field. It was a statement, not a mistake. What went through your mind in that moment? Sarah asked softly. I thought of every person told to be grateful for less. Every professional who's earned a seat at the table and was shown the back door instead. Her voice never cracked. So I called my legal team, and I terminated the deal, on the spot. Some called that decision rash, Sarah said. Some might, Alicia replied, but I see it as the most rational choice I could make. When someone shows you how they truly operate, believe them. Sarah flipped to another page. There's also been chatter online, commentary questioning your emotional state, your judgment. I've seen it, Alicia said. A flicker of a smile touched her face. Apparently, staying composed under pressure now qualifies as unstable. You seem very calm about these attacks, Sarah observed. They're not surprising, Alicia said. When people can't justify their behavior, they try to reframe the story. Make it about the reaction, not the act. She leaned forward slightly. But this isn't just about one deal. It's about a pattern, one that people are finally seeing clearly. You attack the one exposing you. It's a tactic as old as discrimination itself, Alicia said. The interview lasted another 30 minutes. Through each question, Alicia remained calm, precise, and devastatingly clear. No emotion, no exaggeration, just truth and receipts. As they wrapped up, Sarah asked one final question. What would you say to others facing what you faced? Alicia looked straight into the camera. Know your worth. Don't let anyone convince you that disrespect is the price of access. And when you stand up for yourself, you're standing up for everyone Who comes after you? The producer gave the signal. Sarah removed her headset, visibly moved. That was powerful, she said. We'll have the edited version out tonight. Thank you, Sarah, Alicia replied. You asked the questions that needed to be asked. Back at the office, her team was already monitoring the reaction. The unedited interview had been streamed live for premium subscribers. Clips were already circulating. Look at this, Sasha said, holding up her phone. Black executives from tech to finance are sharing their own stories. Stand with Rodas is trending. Marcus nodded, scrolling fast. Former Elite Jets employees are reaching out. They're sharing internal emails, confirming your story. Momentum was shifting until Sasha's face suddenly fell. Alicia, you need to see this. She turned her screen. An anonymous email. No subject line. One sentence. Back off. You have no idea what you're walking into. Keep going, and we'll ruin everything you built. Your choice. More emails followed, each darker than the last. Threats of financial ruin, personal attacks, details about employees, hints at legal traps being prepared. Alicia read each one with a still face. She handed the phone back. Forward these to Thomas and notify security. She turned to Marcus. Pull up everything we have on Elite Jets, their financial structure, shell companies, outside partnerships. If they're this desperate, I want to know why. Sasha stared at her. What are you thinking? Alicia didn't blink. Her voice was low but certain. They're trying to scare us. Because the interview worked. Let's find out what they're trying to protect. The next morning, Alicia arrived at 6:30 a.m. As usual, she was early. But today, the office wasn't empty. A cyber response team, unfamiliar faces, had already filled the conference room. Laptops open, eyes focused. Morning, Marcus called. Security teams started sweeping at 5 a.m. A woman with gray hair and the posture of someone who'd seen everything approached her. Ms. Rhodes, she said, I'm Janet Cooper, Digital Fortress. We need to speak. Now. They moved into Alicia's office. Janet didn't waste time. Someone has been attempting to breach your internal systems since yesterday afternoon. Sophisticated attacks. They're digging through payroll, acquisitions, tax filings. Alicia's jaw tightened. How close did they get? Too close, Janet said, tapping her tablet. 3 access points trace back to networks used in previous corporate sabotage cases, involving the same firm you just walked away from. Sasha entered quietly, handing Alicia coffee. Alicia didn't miss a beat. Are we exposed? Your current infrastructure's decent, Janet admitted, but it's not built for this level of attack. If they keep pushing, they'll find something. Upgrade everything, Alicia said. Today. For the next hour, the office transformed. New firewalls, real-time monitoring, sensitive data moved to secure servers, password protocols updated. No one panicked, but no one spoke much either. At 9, Marcus appeared at the door again. You need to see this. Robert Chen, CFO of Rhodes's Aviation, was waiting in the smaller conference room. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. They're targeting our audit trail, he said flatly. Unusual access attempts to our tax and acquisition files. They're not just phishing, they're digging for something they can twist. Alicia sat, her fingers tapping once against the table. They're looking for a way to create doubt, she said. Even if it's false, a single headline, a leak, a delay, something that casts a shadow. Robert nodded. Exactly. They want to spook our investors, trigger regulatory review, force panic. Alicia leaned back, thinking, not of survival, but of strategy. They don't realize we've already turned the tide, she said. Now they're trying to burn the whole field. That means they're exposed. Marcus entered again, phone in hand. Diana Washington's show just bumped her lineup. They want you live. Tonight. Alicia didn't hesitate. Let's do it. In my assessment, Robert said, spreading documents across the table, even though our records are clean, a well-coordinated attack could still trigger serious disruption. All they need is a sliver of doubt. Alicia nodded slowly. If they managed to plant even a hint of impropriety, they could freeze our assets, Robert finished. An investigation like that could take months, maybe years. He didn't need to explain the consequences. Missed payrolls, stalled contracts, investor panic. Alicia walked to the window. Below, Manhattan was fully awake, cars honking, people moving, the buzz of a city unaware that a different kind of war was being waged above it. Robert, she said, turning back, I want you to start something, quietly. He looked up. I want a complete audit trail, every dollar, every signature, every approval that's ever passed through this company. We're going to build a record so clean they won't know where to attack. Robert hesitated, only for a second, then opened his laptop. That's a massive job. Break it into phases. Start with this year and work backward. Focus on anything connected to elite jets or any of their offshoots. And Robert, he looked up again. Keep this between us. Understood, he said, already typing. Just then, Janet from cybersecurity appeared in the doorway. Her face was tight. Ms. Rhodes, we found something else, she said. Multiple attempts to breach your personal email and financial records. This isn't just about your company anymore. They're coming after you. Alicia stayed quiet, but her hand tightened around her coffee cup. Secure everything, she said. Phones, home network, personal devices, mine and my leadership teams. We're already on it, Janet replied. Then she paused. But there's more. We detected attempts to activate cameras on 30 of your company's computers, including yours. The room went still. Robert's fingers stopped. Marcus looked up from his corner, pale. Sasha walked in, holding a fresh coffee, and caught the tension immediately. They want eyes inside the operation, Alicia said quietly. Janet nodded. We're installing countermeasures. But this is deep surveillance, and it's ongoing. Alicia stood straighter. Get everyone in the main conference room. 20 minutes. Department heads, senior staff, no exceptions. As Marcus moved quickly to alert the team, Sasha approached. Press is starting to ask about all the security consultants arriving this morning. Tell them it's routine system maintenance, Alicia replied. Standard practice after a major contract termination. Sasha lowered her voice. Are you okay? This is getting intense. Alicia gave a faint, steady smile. They think they can scare us into silence. They clearly don't know who they're dealing with. She returned to her office, now transformed into a makeshift command center. Janet's team worked in silence, their screens glowing with real-time intrusion alerts, network activity, and threat mapping. Robert, she called out as she passed his office, start with last quarter's financials, transaction by transaction. Build me a wall they can't touch. The morning sun lit the determined faces of her team. They weren't panicking. They were preparing for battle. Alicia Rhodes had never walked away from a challenge, and she wasn't about to start now. That evening, the sky over Manhattan turned orange, but Alicia wasn't watching the sunset. She sat in her home office, surrounded by monitors. On screen, the faces of some of the most respected Black executives, attorneys, and community leaders in the country. Quiet, strong, present. Thank you all for making time tonight, Alicia began. I know this wasn't easy. Marcus Davidson, CEO of the largest Black-owned financial institution in the country, was the first to speak. When we saw what happened at that airfield, Alicia, we knew we had to respond. This isn't just about one deal, it's about all of us. Heads nodded, expressions sharpened. Dr. Regina Watson, president of the National Association of Black Business Leaders, leaned in. We need every detail, no generalizations. Tell us exactly what they did. And so Alicia told them. She described the airfield, the comments, the jet, the humiliation. Not dramatically, just plainly, clearly. And as she spoke, she watched recognition flash across the screens. "I've seen this before," said James Turner, founder of a leading tech company. "They bring you in just far enough to parade your presence. Then they try to break you in front of their peers." Patricia Montgomery, one of the country's most respected civil rights attorneys, narrowed her eyes. "What they didn't expect was for you to walk. That scared them. Now they're scrambling, trying to ruin you before you can speak." Alicia nodded. "They've already started. Leaks, rumors about my stability, whispers about our financials. They've even tried to breach our systems. They're terrified that I'll expose what really happened." "And what are you planning to do?" Dr. Watson asked. Alicia looked into the camera. Calm, focused. "I'm going to show the world exactly how this game is played. And then I'm going to change the rules." "They're not just trying to smear you," Marcus said. "This morning we caught them actively trying to hack into our systems. It's time to stop defending. We need to hit back. Smart." "Expose the whole machine," Dr. Watson added. "How many black founders have they quietly erased from deals like this? How many careers were crushed without headlines?" She pulled up a document. "My team started digging when your story broke. Over the last 10 years, Elite Jets and its partner companies have had 0 black board members. Less than 1% of their executives are black. And their client demographics? Even worse." "And that's just the surface," said James Turner. "I've been contacted by former employees in the past 48 hours. What they describe, the culture, the treatment, is systemic." "That's our angle," said Patricia Montgomery, voice sharp. "We don't just react to what they did to Alicia. We map the pattern, show this wasn't an isolated case. It's a model." Alicia listened as the network around her formed in real time. These weren't just colleagues. They were veterans of the same battlefield, people who had succeeded not because of the system, but despite it. "My foundation can fund an independent investigation," said Marcus. "Professional, airtight, fully above board. We'll coordinate on the legal side," Patricia added. "We'll document every detail. They'll try to discredit anything we bring forward, so it needs to be unshakable." Dr. Watson leaned forward. "The association will start hosting executive forums nationwide. Let others come forward with their stories. We'll show this is bigger than aviation." "I'll activate our tech network," said James. "We'll counter their digital pressure. Black-owned cybersecurity firms, experts, they won't see it coming." Sasha moved quietly through the room, delivering updates to Alicia, taking notes, distributing action items. In the background, Rhodes Aviation's late-night staff worked under heightened protocols, digitizing records, fortifying firewalls, preparing for what came next. "We need to think beyond just elite jets," Alicia said. "This is about disrupting an entire sector built on exclusion, changing the rules of access in private aviation." "Exactly," Marcus agreed. "We use their aggression to spotlight how their network limits opportunity, suppresses innovation, and costs industries money." "And let's follow the money," Patricia added. "They're investors, pension funds, institutional partners. Many of them have no idea they're backing discriminatory systems. That kind of pressure, it's loud." They continued for another hour, crafting a strategy that reached far beyond damage control. By the end, Marcus would lead the investigation. Patricia would mobilize legal teams. Dr. Watson would spearhead outreach. James would secure the digital front. "Thank you all," Alicia said as the meeting wrapped. "Your support means more than I can say." "We stand together," Dr. Watson replied. "They thought they could isolate you. Instead, they've awakened a movement." One by one, their screens faded to black. Alicia leaned back in her chair, the adrenaline finally giving way to exhaustion. Sasha entered with tea and a stack of handwritten notes. That went well, she said. They mobilized fast. They've all lived it, Alicia replied. That's why they didn't hesitate. A soft chime interrupted them. A new email. No subject line. Unknown sender. Alicia froze for half a breath, remembering Janet's warning. All unknown messages were to be treated with caution. Sasha leaned in. Should we call the tech team? No, Alicia said. This one made it through our new encrypted server. Someone worked hard to get it here. She opened it. The message was simple. What they did to you was wrong. I have proof. They're working with regulators to shut you down. Meeting tomorrow night. Location to follow. Come alone. Sasha stared at the screen. Could be a trap. Or it's exactly what we need, Alicia said. Someone inside, finally speaking up. She forwarded the message to Janet's security team, then turned to Sasha. Clear my calendar tomorrow. Sweep my entire route. If this meeting happens, we're going in ready. Morning sunlight filled Alicia's office as Janet reviewed new breach reports. They're ramping up, she said. More login attempts, more scans. But our new systems are holding. A knock interrupted them. Sasha entered, followed by Marcus Davidson's head of security, carrying a small sealed package. This arrived just now, Sasha explained. Intercepted and scanned by Marcus's team. No signs of tampering. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note, recorded at Elite Jet's private club last week. They never thought anyone was listening. Alicia nodded to Janet, who took the drive and connected it to an air-gapped system. The first file was audio, muffled at first, then clearer. It was unmistakably real. A man's voice, calm, entitled, and careless, said, "She'll walk away angry, and we'll paint her as unstable. By the time she realizes what's happening, her investors will be gone." Another voice responded, laughing faintly, "Let her run to the media. By the time she's done talking, the damage will already be done." Janet looked up from her screen. "They planned everything," she said. Alicia's jaw clenched. "Then we show the world everything." The audio was muffled, but unmistakable. Philip Lancaster's smug voice filled the room. "The regulators are already lined up. One call and they'll freeze everything she owns." Then came Daniel Rohr, slightly slurred but crystal clear. "Paid enough to make sure they find something in her books. She'll be too busy fighting to be a problem anymore." Laughter. "You should have seen her face when we rolled out that rust bucket," Philip sneered. "Like we'd ever let someone like her in." "She'll learn to stay in her lane," Daniel added. "By next week, Rhodes Aviation will be in free fall." The room went still. Janet quickly opened more files pulled from the USB, emails, bank transfers, meetings, everything tied together in a timeline of conspiracy, clear, deliberate, targeted. "They bribed regulators," she confirmed, "and they left a paper trail." Alicia didn't hesitate. "Call Thomas, now, and get Marcus's team. We need this verified immediately." Within the hour, her office transformed into a war room. Thomas Whitaker arrived, pacing as he listened to the recordings on repeat, noting every detail. Forensic experts combed through the bank records. Janet's team locked down the digital files. Marcus's investigators ran background checks and legal validations. "This is it," Thomas said, pausing playback. "Everything we need, but we need to move fast. If they realize this leaked, they'll try to destroy it." Janet nodded grimly. "And the regulators they bribed? They're already compromised. If they move first, they could trigger a shutdown investigation, freeze operations, paralyze the company." Alicia stood by the window, watching the Manhattan skyline glowing with sunset. Then she turned. "Then we go public before they do. Full press conference, all of it. Tomorrow morning." She looked at Thomas. "What are the legal implications?" He didn't hesitate. Bribery, corruption, conspiracy, possibly RICO. The FBI's Public Corruption Unit would have jurisdiction. "Call them," she said. "But tell them this, we're not waiting. They can join the momentum or get left behind. All night her team worked. Sasha coordinated media. Thomas drafted legal statements. Janet's people created secure offline backups of every file, preparing for cyber retaliation. By evening, Marcus's investigation team confirmed it. The documents were real. The voices on the recordings were authentic. The digital trail was untouched. As the city faded into night, Alicia reviewed the final press materials. Screenshots of emails, records of suspicious payments, transcripts of the recorded conversations, names of compromised regulators. Everything was ready. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost declined, but something made her answer. "Ms. Rodas," a woman's voice said, calm and direct. "This is Special Agent Sarah Chen, FBI Public Corruption Unit. We need to meet tonight regarding Philip Lancaster and Daniel Rohr." Alicia's eyes narrowed. "And the evidence we've collected?" "We're prepared to open a formal investigation, but we need to move fast. Can you be at our field office within the hour?" Alicia checked the time. "With my attorney, of course. We'll have U.S. attorneys present. This goes beyond elite jets, Ms. Rodas." 15 minutes later, Thomas arrived. As their car took a carefully planned route through the city, he reviewed relevant federal statutes on his tablet. "They'll want you to hold the press conference," he said. "Wait until charges are filed." "They can want," Alicia replied, "but I'm not giving Philip and Daniel one more day to control the story." At the federal building, they were escorted straight to a secured conference room. Agent Chen and 2 prosecutors sat with stacks of documents already prepared. "Thank you for coming," Chen began. Alicia raised a hand. "Before we begin, I want this clear. I'm holding a press conference tomorrow morning. I'm releasing everything. I'll cooperate fully, but I will not be silenced." The prosecutors exchanged glances. Chen gave a small smile. "Actually, Ms. Rodas, we're counting on it. Your statement will bring out more witnesses. We just needed confirmation your evidence was real, and it is." For the next 2 hours, they reviewed every file, every recording, every transfer. What Alicia had uncovered went far deeper than a single company. "This is larger than we imagined," Agent Chen said. "Elite Jets is just the surface. This touches multiple agencies, private boards, and high-level executives. We've suspected for years, but never had the evidence." She handed Alicia a card. "Go public in the morning. The moment your press conference ends, we execute search warrants. By noon tomorrow, Philip Lancaster and Daniel Rohr will be in custody." On the ride home, Thomas turned to her, flipping through his notes. "They're not just going to lose their company. They're looking at federal time, possibly decades. And you—" Alicia looked out at the glowing city skyline, voice quiet but resolute. "I'm just getting started." They were looking at real prison time now. Alicia watched the Manhattan lights blur past the window of her car, her reflection flickering against the glass. The city was quiet, unaware that by noon a storm would break, and justice, long denied, would finally begin to move. The January air was still sharp with frost when Alicia's car pulled up to the federal building. Her breath rose in quick clouds as she and Thomas walked briskly past security. 2 guards checked their IDs twice before escorting them down a maze of corridors. Agent Sarah Chen met them in a secured, windowless room where 3 agents and 2 federal prosecutors were already seated. The fluorescent light above cast sharp shadows across determined faces. "Ms. Rodas, Mr. Whitaker," Chen said, motioning to the seats. "Thank you for coming in early. We wanted to brief you before your press conference." Alicia set her briefcase on the table. Before her lay a series of thick folders labeled Elite Jets Investigation. "I assume everything we provided has been verified?" "Multiple times," confirmed Amanda Torres, lead federal prosecutor. Her tone was clipped, focused. "And not just verified, it's overwhelming." Prosecutor James Wilson opened one of the files. We've already secured sealed indictments for Philip Lancaster and Daniel Rohr. The moment your press conference concludes, we move." Thomas leaned forward, flipping open his notepad. "What does move look like?" Chen activated a screen. A digital timeline lit up. At 11 a.m., you begin your conference. By 11:30, once key evidence is made public, we'll execute simultaneous raids on elite jets offices in New York, Los Angeles, and Miami. Arrest teams are standing by. Torres added, "Lancaster and Rohr will be taken into custody, along with 3 high-ranking regulators and Elite's CFO. Surveillance teams have been tracking their movements since yesterday." Alicia scanned the screen, reading the timeline in silence. Wilson continued, listing charges as if reading from a war ledger. Conspiracy to commit bribery, wire fraud, corruption of federal officials, obstruction of justice, and if we can connect the broader pattern of discrimination, RICO charges are on the table. Chen folded her arms. The recordings are particularly damning. The racial comments, the arrogance about buying off oversight, it paints a very clear picture. Thomas frowned. What about retaliation? Alicia and her team are still exposed. "We've frozen all personal and corporate accounts tied to Lancaster and Rohr," Torres said. "Any attempt to shift assets will trigger alerts, but we're not underestimating them. That's why we're assigning security teams starting now." Alicia sipped her coffee. It was cold and bitter, fitting. She nodded slowly. "And their regulatory case against us?" "Dismissed as of 5 a.m., Wilson said. "The regulators involved have been suspended. Your company's assets will be unfrozen before day's end." Some of the weight lifted from her shoulders. Her employees would be paid. The company would survive. And those who tried to silence her would now have to answer for it. "One more thing," Chen added, sliding a sealed folder toward her. "We'd like you to testify before a grand jury next week. Your personal account, what you witnessed, what they said, could be decisive." Alicia read the document briefly, then looked up. "I'll do it, whatever it takes." Torres stood. "Agents will escort you to your office. Protective detail remains in place until Lancaster and Rohr are in custody." They gathered their materials. As they reached the hallway, Wilson paused. "What you've done here, Ms. Rhodes, standing up against their power, their intimidation, it's extraordinary. You've helped us break a case we've been chasing for years." In the elevator, Thomas glanced at his watch. 3 hours. Alicia said nothing at first. Then, with the city rising below them, she spoke. "I thought of giving up, more than once, but every time they tried to push me down, someone reached out, someone stood beside me, and then we found the truth." She turned toward Thomas. "I'm not just fighting for my company. I'm fighting for everyone who ever got pushed aside and told to smile through it." He nodded. "Are you ready?" Alicia's voice was quiet, but iron-strong. "More than ready. It's time they learned what consequences look like." And as the elevator doors opened, Alicia Rhodes stepped out, walking straight into the day that would change everything. Title: A Black CEO Was Humiliated. On the tarmac, weeks later, she brought down an empire. Alicia Rhodes arrived at the airstrip dressed for success, ready to close a $770 million deal with elite jets. Instead, she was greeted with sneers, a dusty, decommissioned plane, and deliberate humiliation. The message was clear. She didn't belong in their world. They underestimated her. What came next would shake the entire aviation industry. Within days, Alicia's company was hit with a surprise federal audit. Regulators froze her assets and launched a smear campaign questioning her mental health and leadership. But Alicia knew where it was coming from, and she had the receipts. Her assistant Janet found audio files, Philip Lancaster and Daniel Rohr, the heads of elite jets, bragging about bribing regulators and destroying her company. "No black CEO is going to show us up," one of them said. It wasn't just personal, it was systemic. Alicia turned her office into a war room. Her legal team, tech forensics, and independent investigators worked around the clock. What they uncovered was staggering. Emails, bank transfers, surveillance, proof of years-long corruption, racism, and regulatory manipulation. They even caught Philip and Daniel on tape laughing about teaching her a lesson. Instead of hiding, Alicia went public. The day before her press conference, the FBI called. They had been building a case for years, but never had the missing piece. Alicia just handed it to them. The next morning, as Alicia stood before a packed press room, she laid it all out. The Tarmac insult, the retaliations, the bribes. Her voice never trembled. Behind her stood civil rights leaders, former Elite Jets employees, and a wall of hard evidence. Then she played the recordings. The room froze. Philip's voice crackled. "We'll freeze her assets, ruin her reputation." Then Daniel, "We own this industry." Reporters gasped. Screens lit up with headlines. And right on cue, as Alicia concluded her press conference, FBI teams launched raids on Elite Jets offices in New York, Miami, and LA. Philip and Daniel were let out in handcuffs. By sunset, their empire was in free fall. Stock crashed, clients bailed, board members resigned. Their photos once adorned glossy magazines. Now, they were mugshots in orange jumpsuits. But Alicia wasn't done. Back at Rhodes Aviation, employees celebrated as their back pay was restored and accounts unfrozen. Alicia addressed her staff with one message: this victory belonged to all of them. That evening, at the aviation industry's ethics gala, Alicia, draped in royal blue and pearls, received a standing ovation. But when she stepped to the microphone, she didn't talk about revenge. She talked about change. "We're not here to celebrate the fall of corrupt leaders," she said. "We're here to build something better, an industry where dignity is valued over dominance." And the room, full of executives who once ignored her, stood again, this time in solidarity. Justice had finally landed.